Tonight we want to start a new series and we want to talk about change, looking at the nation going back and opening up the nation and understanding everything's about to change. The way we once knew life will no longer know life as it used to be. One of the misconceptions in opening up the nation is that a lot of us believe and a lot of us think that we're going back to the way things used to be. But the truth of the matter is we're not going back to the way things used to be. There's a change coming. And in order to make that change and adjust to that change, we have to understand the importance of change. We have to understand how change occurs. We have to understand how to make that change permanent and make that change work for us. I'll give you a good case in point. Before 9/11, we never thought here in America that we would have the type of security we have now at the airports. But after 9/11, we have this great change in our airports all over the nation. You have to go through this serious, in-depth body scan process, if you will, just to get on a plane. So life as we knew it will not be the same, but if we understand how to make that change, if we understand the importance of the change and how to make that change benefit us and work for us, we will come out on the other end in victory. Tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to look at this first step in change, and that's our decisions. How our decisions usher in those changes. Here's your definition for decision. Decisions is the determination to follow a course of action. A decision is a determination to follow a course of action. Once we decide a thing, that thing sets in place or should set in place a course of action to be followed. What we tend to do is we tend to make decisions, but then we leave out the follow-up. We leave out the follow-up. We leave out the course of action to follow. A good example would be if I want to change careers. I can't change my career by saying I want to change my career and never do anything about changing my career. I can't say I want a job and all I do is sit on the sofa with a remote in my hand going from station to station, but I'm never applying. I'm never getting out to see who's hiring. I'm never talking to anyone. I'm never going to interviews. I'm never making an intentional effort, if you will, to gain that work employment, to gain that employment, to gain that job. We have to understand that first step in decision change is our decision. Write this down, if you will. In order for a change to take place, your words have got to line up with your decision. Your words must line up with your decisions, and your actions must line up with your words. So here we are. The first thing I need to understand is my words must line up with my decision. So my decision should influence my words, and my words should influence my actions. We make decisions all day long. It's the decisions that we make and we hold to at all costs that makes the difference. The decisions we hold to that at all costs makes the difference. These are the decisions that cause our words and our actions to change. When our words and our actions change, now we're in the process of going through that course of action to bring about the change that we desire. That's just to bring about the change we want. That's not to say that those decisions we made and we didn't stick to them were not important. They may very well be important, but it's those decisions that we make and we hold to and we walk out the course of action to bring about those change. That is where our changes take place. Changes begin in our decision. Nothing just happens. Our decisions influence our words, as our words influence our actions. That's why it is vital that our decisions and words be solely based on the Word of God. If our decisions is the platform to bring about change, our words are the formation of change and set the course of action for change, then our actions are what produces that change. So we have that process that we have to go through in order to get a change that will work in our favor, change that will benefit us in the end. But we cannot bypass where our decisions first have to come in line, and they first have to be in line with the Word of God. And the Word of God should be influencing our decisions. It should be influencing our words. It should be influencing our actions. First, we have the decision process. We make that decision to change. Once that decision is changed, now our words come into play. Take a look, if you will, at Proverbs 18 and 21. Proverbs 18 and 21. And here's what Proverbs 18 and 21 says. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. In other words, to make it plain and simple, the words that we say, we will live by those words. Those words will manifest in our life, whether they're good, whether they're bad, whether they're improvement, or whether they're negative. It does not matter. Those words will improve in our lives. I like the way Paul put it. Paul puts it this way in James 3, 1 and 6. He says this, and the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity, which is unrighteousness. The tongue is so set among our members that it defiles the whole body and sets on fire the course of nature, existence, and it is set on fire by hell. What is Paul actually saying? He's saying the same thing the writer of Proverbs said when death and life are in the power of the tongue. He's saying the same exact thing. He's just giving us a broader scope of how important our words are when it comes to change, how important our words are when it comes to how we live our life, the things we're going to do, how we're going to get there, how will we achieve this goal. Not only will your decisions affect you, but they will affect your entire family. Whatever decision you make, be it good or bad, you need to understand that in this process of reopening the nation, and we're going through this scary, well, not this scary, I don't like that word scary, we're going through this process of change. We have to understand that whatever changes are made, they're going to affect everyone around you and everyone that's coming behind you. I'll say this. Now's the time. Now's the time to sit down and begin to have those family meetings of how we're going to address the change that's coming in the reopening of the nations. Because I promise you this, the nation as it reopens is not going to reopen to what we call the norm. It's not going to be the same way it was before we went on a stay-at-home mandate. It's not going to be that way before we lost and the athletic events were canceled because of the large gatherings before church. We never thought for once in America that we would see church doors having to close because of the gathering, that we could not gather in one place and worship God. It was just unfathomable. We couldn't imagine such things, but here we are that we can't even do that now. But it's okay because there's a change coming and we have to be prepared and we have to be ready for that change. And that change will begin in our decision, which will create our words, which will produce a course of action to carry out this change. So not only will that change affect you, it is going to affect your entire family and everyone around you. Schools will not be the same. The way we went to school, the way teachers address students, the way students addressed each other, they will not be the same when we return. So we have to be prepared. We have to be prepared. Understanding that those changes, that the changes are coming and the changes that we sit down as family and decide what we're going to do, how they're going to be effective, we need to understand that they are going to affect everyone. One of the things we need to understand, and when we talk about change, is this. The problem we have in America is this. We have so many options and so many choices that our decision process sometimes gets cloudy, it gets frustrating, it gets unsure, all because there's so many choices. We can see the benefit of one thing, but this over here is what we like. We can see the benefit of this, but this also is a benefit, but the two just don't gel. So we have too many choices. I'll tell you this. My wife and I went walking this morning, and this process of choices came up, and we talked about how when we were growing up, we didn't have all of these choices. It was either true or false, yes or no, A or B. That was it. We didn't have all of these choices, and I like that system because that actually is a biblical system. God only gives us two choices in life. He says choose life or choose death. Those are the only two choices God ever gave us. It was man who came along and created all of these other choices, who gave us all of these other options, who told us that it was possible to do this and to do that. It's not that the choices are a bad thing, but think about it this way. If we can minimize our choices, and in minimizing those choices, our life now comes to a place where it is more simplified, it is easier to manage, it is easier to walk out into the things that God has promised us. Let's take a look at Deuteronomy 30 and 19 so we can find out how those two choices that God gave us actually work. So in Deuteronomy 30 and 19, here's what the word of God says. It says, I call heaven and earth to record, a witness, if you will, this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life that both you and your descendants may live. You and your seed may live. Listen, here's what God said. He gave you two choices, blessing and cursing. Then he turns around and he tells you which choice to make. It's not often that we hear that in our nation or hear that in our world. We give all of these choices, but they never really tell us the best choice for us to make. They tell us the choice to make that will benefit them. So God says, I give you life and death, blessing, which falls under life, cursing, which falls under death. Choose life that you and your seed may live. Notice what God did. He placed the two biggest decisions you will ever have to make in your life before you and said, choose life. That's just how important this is, because God understood that in just those two choices, there's a plethora of things that can take place, a plethora of things that are going to happen. But if you choose life, which is the word of God, and you stick to that pattern, you stick to that course of action, you stick to that decision at all costs, then everything is going to work out in the end in your benefit.